And thank you for joining us once again at TechNet Cyber 2021. I'm Jim Matney, and I lead the Distant Enterprise Services sector at General Dynamics Information Technology, GDIT, and I'm pleased to be here with you today. Before we welcome our keynote speaker, I'd like to take a moment to recognize our conference host, AFCEA International. Let's give them a round of applause. None of this could have happened today without their dedicated efforts. Indeed, it is forums such as this one that we can witness firsthand the partnerships that are addressing today's most pressing challenges, whether supporting new enterprise cloud capabilities, the establishment of a federated identity service, or driving the vision of JADC2, we recognize the need to deliver solutions at the speed of relevance. But to truly harvest innovations and move with speed and agility, we need to bring diversity of thought and join forces across both the public and private sectors. In that spirit of partnership, it is my great pleasure to welcome today's keynote, Dave Frederick, Jr., the Executive Director of USCYBERCOM. The Executive Director position represents the highest-ranking civilian and third in command at USCYBERCOM. Mr. Frederick leads an organization of over 12,000 personnel to include a headquarters element, 6 large service cyber components, 133 cyber mission force teams consisting of over 6,000 cyber warriors, and DoD enterprise defense forces. He drives global cyber operations to defend the DoD networks, provides cyber options for combatant commanders, and defends U.S. critical infrastructure, while shaping a budget of nearly $700 million that supports elements of DoD budgets totaling in the billions. Please help me welcome Mr. Frederick.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm really excited to be here today. I'm certainly an advocate for cyberspace, but it's good to see people in human form for a change. So I think a lot of us are pretty sick of the video teleconferences at this point. So thanks a lot for coming out today and joining this event. It's a real honor to be here today to speak on behalf of US Cyber Command and General Nakasone. And what I want to focus on is partnerships. So, when I heard about the theme, partnering to win, I thought it was a perfect theme for a conference focused on cyber operations and direction we need to go. So Secretary of Defense Austin's strategy of integrated deterrence relies greatly on partnerships. It's really about bringing together all forms of national power across the interagency to achieve a new level of deterrence against our adversaries. The goal there is to ensure that our adversaries understand that the cost of aggression will far outweigh their benefits. Cyber Command's strategy is known as persistent engagement, and that is a strategy that we use to implement our part of integrated deterrence, contesting adversaries in cyberspace every day. There's really 2 parts to it: enable and act. And just like the broader doctrine of integrated deterrence depends on partnership, we rely greatly on the same. On the enable side, we focus on providing information to our interagency partners. And on the act side, of course, we're ready to impose cost and conduct operations in cyberspace when needed. A great example of persistent engagement in action is the work we did in partnership with NSA to defend the 2020 elections. So we enabled our partners in DHS CISA and FBI by sharing unique information about adversary activities. We also conducted over 24 operations to get ahead of foreign threats to our election systems and threats of misinformation before they could occur. None of this would have been possible without really close partnerships. Cyber Command has 3 main missions, and one of them is defend the nation, and that's kind of what I want to focus on today as I talk about the partnerships we need with the private sector and the rest of the government. So our Defend the Nation mission, Cyber Command's focus is on conducting operations in foreign cyberspace as part of the broader team. So we work very closely with CISA, FBI, U.S. Northern Command, U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, energy in some cases, and other parts of the government. Our role, of course, is to be out forward and conduct operations. And I can't emphasize enough the importance of private sector partnerships in this Defend the Nation mission. We cannot defend the United States using government capabilities alone. It absolutely requires a close partnership with our critical infrastructure entities, the defense industrial base, telecommunications providers, and other key players in the private sector. Collective defense relies on us working together to where we can understand what an adversary is doing in attacking the United States and take action quickly. And what we've found in the last few years is that we have to have a model of collaboration. And that's not always an easy thing to do between the public and the private sector. But we've got to be able to bring analysts together from companies, the telecommunications sector, and the IT sector with the experts on the government side and share information very quickly to understand emerging threats and enable us to take action. Collaborative analysis is the key. So previously, some of the models that were employed were more transactional. The idea was we could share indicators of compromise back and forth and kind of defend our areas independently. Well, what we really found is that doesn't work. We've got to work together. CyberCom has had some great success with our partnerships with the cybersecurity industry. And without going into the details, I'll just note that we've received critically important tips from the private sector that's enabled us to conduct our operations. These types of partnerships require trust and building a relationship before the crisis begins. And so we really look forward this next year to work closely with CISA, with the Joint Cyber Defense Collaborative, and to continue to expand our partnerships with the private sector so that you can come to us at the right time to help us enable our mission, which is, again, on the side of defending the nation in foreign space. The final area of partnerships I wanted to highlight today was academic engagements. And so I'm happy to announce Cyber Command just launched our new academic engagement strategy, and we've established a new academic engagement network. And it's a collaboration channel meant to improve our communications with a broader set of universities and to also further solidify our partnership with National Defense University and the service academies. Our number one goal in the academic engagement network is to inspire students to consider cyber careers in the Department of Defense. What I've learned is that oftentimes students don't even understand that there are options to work as a civilian in the DoD. And we also want to encourage them to pursue military commissions. And so we'll be launching a number of events such as guest lecturing, opportunities for universities, mentoring capstone projects, and reaching out to students to make sure they understand what their options are and how they can serve the nation. We think it's going to be very important in this tough race for talent to encourage students to apply early and try to hire right out of college to enable them to kind of get hooked on the mission and encourage them to do things they can only do in a government role. The other areas that we're focused on in the academic engagement strategy includes innovation and analytic partnerships. We've learned that university faculty and students have some great ideas and unique research about cyber adversaries. Not everything is coming from the intelligence community in terms of new insights into how our adversaries behave and the direction they're going. And so we're going to be expanding the number of analytic partnerships we have with university. This last part, the last part on innovation, I'll mention we're doing in partnership with the National Defense University. They will be launching a university consortium for cybersecurity in December. It's a new program that Congress funded the department to execute. And we're going to be working very closely with them to identify the most pressing research needs and highlighting that for academia. So with that, again, I want to thank all of you for coming today. And I'm hoping to get some really hard questions. So I'll turn it over to whoever's going to ask me the questions.
Our first question, please discuss RMF and how it could be automated to improve cybersecurity and continuous monitoring.
Could you repeat the question? I'm sorry, I missed the first half.
Of course. Please discuss RMF and how it could be automated to improve cybersecurity and continuous monitoring.
So I'm not sure on what you're referring to on the first part of it, so I'll pass on that one. We'll try to get back to you on it because I just couldn't understand if it was a product term or a function. Oh, RMF, Risk Management Framework. Okay, all right, thank you. Thanks for the save. Thanks for the save. Too much rock and roll and firing weapons as a young person. My hearing is not what it used to be. Okay, yeah, so I don't have to tell this crowd that defending a large, complex network is one of the harder jobs you can have. And the risk management framework, any type of standards framework like that enables you as a net defender to really organize and understand risks. I think what I would be excited about is how can we start to introduce artificial intelligence to help with some of the network defense functions. And so network defense still remains very manpower intensive. There's a lot of work that goes into understanding the vulnerabilities, trying to understand how to push patches out. So I think automation first, and then looking in the future to AI as techniques that we could use to look for vulnerabilities in a more rapid fashion and not relying on what's being published from industry, I think would be a great step forward. And again, thanks for helping me on that abbreviation.
U.S. Cyber Command has been an early investigator of zero trust architecture, hosting pilot efforts last year with the Air Force and other organizations. What are the command's efforts in regards to zero trust now?
Okay, great question. So, zero trust is going to be critical to the modernization that we're doing across DoD networks. So, very close partnership, of course, with General Skinner and the team at DISA, JFHQ Doden. We've got a number of pilots underway, and I think you'll continue to see activities in zero trust continue to expand out over the next couple of years.
Can you expand on the new University Consortium for Cybersecurity? What will this consist of? Who will be taking part in it? And what part will DoD play in the consortium?
Great. Okay. So the University Consortium for Cybersecurity, which you'll also hear referred to as UC2, the initial year will be inclusive of all the universities that have a Center for Academic Excellence designation. So step one is to launch it with the CAE universities, and that count of universities and colleges runs about, I think, around 300 or so. So it's a pretty good size group. DoD will expand it beyond the CAE designated universities in year 2. The National Defense University is managing the consortium, and right now we're working as a team on identifying the research topics that we're going to issue out to the universities. NDU will kind of serve as a coordination center and gather information from DoD and push it out to the universities. CYBERCOM is going to rely on the UC2 structure as a means to help fund and support some of our most pressing innovation needs.
General Nakasone has talked about a ransomware surge inside the command recently. What can you say about that surge and what the command is doing along with the whole of government to combat ransomware?
Okay, yes. So I think ransomware has really awakened across the nation the importance of cybersecurity. And so, certainly a very difficult problem. What we're doing in the command is surging resources from both the command and NSA for a period of time to see what we can do to better understand these adversaries, understand the techniques that they're using, the malware that they're employing, and help inform the way we can defend. We're working very closely, as you'd imagine, with CISA and with the broader DoD team on how this fits into the ransomware efforts across the whole government. I'll note also that the administration recently hosted a conference for international partners, and so the NSC is doing what they can to build support across the international community to do their part on defending.
To bolster the government's cyber workforce, have you considered rotation programs where people will rotate into government service for only a few years?
Absolutely. So I think there's a great opportunity to bring people in and out. Those kind of models aren't new ideas. I will tell you, though, it's challenging. So I don't think that those types of models will meet the scale of the requirements that we have, to be honest, because service in the government is different enough from the private sector where it's sometimes really hard to get people in mid-career for a period of time. But we are in favor of that, and in fact, we last year received additional authorization to offer kind of higher compensation for a small number of technical experts, and Cyber Command is working right now through implementing that authorization, so we're hoping to be able to advertise and offer out positions, again, term positions, several years in length, to some technical experts in the upcoming years. I will, though, say that what I'm more focused on is trying to increase our entry-level hiring and develop an ability to do rotations across the services, across the Cyber Command headquarters, and across the major combat support agencies in the department. Because I think there's still room within our HR system, within the Cyber Accepted Service, to provide opportunities for civilians to rotate around from, say, Marine Forces Cyber up to Cyber Command headquarters and outward. We'd also like to align our internships so that we can bring people in and kind of back to that point about inspiring students. The first step is really getting the word out about these opportunities. Every service has cyber-focused internships, but they don't get advertised as effectively as the intelligence community is doing right now. So I am definitely trying to kind of steal a play from the IC playbook and get the word out more about our internships, about scholarship opportunities, and encourage students to seriously consider a cyber career coming out of college. We think if we get people in the door, it also gives students a chance to get through the security clearance process before they need to pay the rent every month. Sometimes it can take a while to get through the process. But if you get people in early, you can really get them passionate about mission, about serving their country, and it'll make a much bigger difference, I think, on retention.
How will DISA enable Zero Trust into the commercial Ethernet gateway contract?
That is a level of detail I do not know about, so I'd refer you to the DISA team. I do not know the details on that Internet Gateway contract.
How does CyberCom view the future of 5G from both friendly and adversary perspective?
Great question. So 5G is a major focus for us in terms of preparing for the future. If you look at the capabilities that 5G is going to offer in terms of autonomy and operating at scale, it's both an advantage and an opportunity and a threat. So defending in the 5G space is certainly going to challenge some of the current models we have around the ideas of perimeter and endpoint. But on the offensive side, you can look at it as a golden set of opportunities. So certainly a major technology trend, one of this, what I would say 3 or 4 that we're keeping an eye on.
Today, and even more so in a future JADC2 environment, weapons platforms, manned and unmanned, are active network endpoints. How is Cyber Command engaging on this front?
It's a great question. So I think there's 2 points to that I would like to address. One is, how do we improve weapons platform cybersecurity? And Cyber Command is working very closely with DoD CIO and the services to ensure that we continue to advance, baking in cybersecurity in these systems in the beginning. So we don't want to spend our entire time trying to remediate problems that are really difficult to remediate once the system's deployed. I think when you look at JADC2, another area that we're working with joint staff on is data and metadata labeling. So in fact, we're going to be hosting a metadata labeling summit next week, and for all the services and the COCOMs, to talk about getting to some standards we've got to be able to exchange data at scale. You've got to have assurance that the data that you're exchanging is uncorrupted. And if you do have a case where an adversary or something else has caused data corruption, you've got to be able to locate that data and rid it of your systems. And so we think a key part of JADC2 is going to be metadata labeling. And so it's a focus that I've got right now with the Joint Staff J6 team.
You discussed the university consortium that's being built. Is CYBERCOM involved in earlier education, K through 12 level, and if so, in what ways?
Okay, good question. We are not involved in K through 12. You know, as a warfighting command, we really looked hard at our role and our differentiation. And NSA and other parts of the department, and other departments for that matter, DHS, are leading the way for the government in terms of K through 12 education. It's a critical part of it. You know, we've got to inspire young people to pursue STEM careers early and expose them. And, you know, if you look at Gen Cyber, some of the other programs in place to support that program, we in the long term, CYBERCOM is the beneficiary of that type of work, but we're not directly involved.
Thank you, sir. That was the final question.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Hope you have a great conference this week.
I would like to welcome General Shea back to the stage to formally thank him on behalf of AFCEA and our audience.
Well, thank you, Mr. Frederick, for joining us here today. And in lieu of a speaker gift, AFCEA will make a donation to Fisher House on your behalf. So thank you very much. You know, in Mr. Frederick's presentation, a few things came out, and he hit real hard on the persistent engagement, which means that the threat we're dealing with is out there all the time, and we cannot let our guard down in that regard. And he also brought up the 2020 election and the role that NSA played in the 2020 election. And again, you know, because of cyber, our way of life, our way of government, everything are under constant threat. And we need to be mindful of that and not take our eye off the target there. He also talked about close partnerships with the private sector. And again, he talked about bringing industry and government together. And that's what AFCEA does, and that's what this event is all about. I'd be remiss if I didn't go back and tie something together that General Skinner mentioned this morning. He talked about the tie, he talked about you know, some of the legacy of DISA. He talked about Major Meyer of the Army Signal Corps, was the first chief of signal, really, of the Army. You know, AFCEA traces its role back to General Meyer as well, and as he evolved and the Army Signal Corps evolved over time with different associations and groups, to the point in 1946, General Sarnoff of RCA fame, Harry Ingalls, and Darrell Zanuck, who was the producer of or director of The Longest Day, decided at the end of the war that they needed to put together an association that would bring industry, government, and academia. This is AFCEA, and they founded AFCEA at a bar up in New York City called Francis Tavern, kind of like Tun's Tavern for the Marines, right? But the bottom line, they founded AFCEA in 1946 at Francis Tavern down in the financial district in New York City. 75 years later, we're going strong, and I want to, again, offer the opportunity and for any of you out there in the audience to join us, because our job really is to bring industry, government, and academia together. And so, Mr. Frederick, if there's anything that we can do from the AFCEA side to help you make that happen, we would be more than welcome to do that. We would, or be more than happy to do that. We've got 138 chapters around the world ready to go to work to help do our part in defending our country and our partner nations as well. So thank you very much for your talk, and thank you for being here and taking the time to speak to us today. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a break in just a moment where dessert provided by Fortinet will be served in the exhibit hall. You can see this afternoon's schedule, and I would like to point out the popular Meet the Seniors and PM's networking session will begin immediately after lunch in the back of the exhibit hall. Please consult the conference app for a full schedule on the information that will be provided in terms of the ability or, you know, the arrangements to meet the seniors and PMs. Again, DISA goes out of its way to open up the doors to have that exchange that we just talked about, so please take advantage of it. We'll reconvene back here in this room at 3 o'clock for a keynote from the DoD CIO's office, which will be followed by a fireside chat featuring the new National Cyber Director, Chris Inglis. Following those sessions, we'll move to the exhibit hall to close the day with our technology networking reception. So again, thank you for joining us this afternoon. Please enjoy your time in the exhibit hall, and we look forward to seeing you back here at 3 o'clock for two informative panels and discussions that we'll be having here. So thank you very much.